Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janma Yasya Yato Nivayad Itaratas Charteso Vigyasrayat. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyantisat Suraya. Tejo Vari Madam Yata Vinimayo Yachati Sargomasha. Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in a transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma Pojita Kaitruhotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapa Trayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagvate Mahamuni Krite Kim va Purer Ishwaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra Krite Bihi Sususavistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from the illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpaturor galitam phalam sukhamukad amrita dravyasam yatam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho rasika bhuvibhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire to read Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Katha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantak Stohi Abhadrani Vidunati Suhit Satam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend, and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Nastapresu abhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke bhakti bhavati naistaki. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye cheta etairanavidam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of material. One becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. Vidyate hridaya krantis. Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarva samsaya siyante chasya karmani drista eva atmanishvare. Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, verse number 36. Anyatate vyakta gatir darsanam nakatam rinam nitaram mriyamananam samsiddhasya vaniyasa. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Otherwise, without being inspired by Lord Krishna, how is it that you have voluntarily appeared here, though you are moving incognito to the common man and are not visible to us who are on the verge of death? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Sukadeva Goswami was certainly inspired by Lord Krishna to appear voluntarily before Maharaj Parikshit, the great devotee of the Lord, just to give him the teachings of Srimad Bhagvatam. One can achieve the nucleus of the devotional service of the Lord by the mercy of the spiritual master and the personality of Godhead. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord to help one achieve ultimate success. One who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become spiritual master. Srila Sukadeva Goswami is an authorized spiritual master, and thus he was inspired by the Lord to appear before Maharaj Pariksit and instruct him in the teachings of Srimad Bhagvatam. One can achieve the ultimate success of going back to Godhead if he is favored by the Lord's sending his true representative. As soon as a true representative of the Lord is met by a devotee of the Lord, the devotee is assured a guarantee for going back to Godhead just after leaving the present body. This, however, depends on the sincerity of the devotee himself. The Lord is seated in the heart of all living beings, and thus he knows very well the movements of all individual persons. As soon as the Lord finds that a particular soul is very eager to go back to Godhead, the Lord at once sends his bona fide representative. The sincere devotee is thus assured by the Lord of going back to Godhead. The conclusion is that to get the assistance and help of a bona fide spiritual master means to receive the direct help of the Lord himself. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So there's some very interesting points in this purport by Srila Prabhupada. He says, the spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord to help one achieve ultimate success. One who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become a spiritual master. Srila Sukadeva Goswami is an authorized spiritual master, and thus he was inspired by the Lord to appear before Maharaj Pariksit and instruct him in the teachings of Srimad Bhagvatam. So this question, one who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become a spiritual master. What does this mean exactly? Because when you say one has to be authorized by the Lord, how does the Lord today authorize someone to become a spiritual master? Well, that's done through the representatives of the Lord. Just like in ISKCON, we have the governing body commission, GBC. So what does the GBC do? The GBC body do? It's made up of GBC members, and there's at least 32 to 35 members. Well, it is the ultimate managing authority in ISKCON. So, what does it mean to be a managing authority? It means you have deputed service by the founder Acharya. He gives this particular service to certain members of ISKCON to be managers. And what does the manager do? The managers are supposed to safeguard and proliferate the goals given to them by the spiritual master. And so Srila Prabhupada, he acted as a spiritual master under the authority of his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. So he had received certain instructions from his guru. There are general instructions and specific instructions. The general instructions are the vows one takes at initiation. And specific instruction, even before Prabhupada was initiated, his guru, in the first meeting that they had, in the first 30 seconds of the meeting, said, "You are well educated. Why don't you should spread this Krishna consciousness movement in the English-speaking world?" So that was in 1922. Now fast forward to 1958, Prabhupada took sannyas. And then fast forward to 1965, he decided to do exactly what his guru asked him to do, which was go to the English-speaking part of the world and spread Krishna consciousness. Now, what happened between 1922 and 1958? Prabhupada was preparing himself to do that. In 1922, he had been married not so long before that, and he had a child, and he was working to maintain the family, and he thought it was not possible to give everything up and take up the mission of his guru. So he did it gradually. He had 5 children, he raised them, and he tried to help each one to become Krishna conscious, or at least to be a good person. And some of his children were Krishna conscious. Some, although they were trained, they did not follow it completely. But in any case, when the proper time came, he gave up family life, but made sure his wife was being taken care of. And he took to Krishna consciousness completely to execute the order of his spiritual master. And even though other people received the same order that Srila Prabhupada did, other disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur received the same order that Prabhupada received, and 3 of them did come to the Western countries, or the English-speaking countries, but they were not successful. However, Prabhupada came, and he was most successful because he strictly followed the instructions of his spiritual master. Now, let's come back to the question. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord to help one achieve ultimate success. One who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become a spiritual master. So, this authorization by the Lord comes through the representatives or devotees of the Lord. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave an instruction to all his disciples that after his disappearance, they should form a governing body, and that he did not appoint any of them as the acharya of the Gaudiya Math. They're all teachers, they're all acharyas in that sense, but he did not appoint one person as his successor. He said that he should form a governing body. Well, unfortunately, they didn't do that. And what happened? They got into big arguments, and eventually they decided that everyone can be an acharya and have their own little movement. And they split apart. And then each acharya chooses his own successor to be the next acharya. Well, Prabhupada didn't do that. He was the founder acharya of ISKCON, but he also formed a governing body. And he invested the governing body with the authority to manage the movement while he was still present and after his disappearance. And that's what's going on today. And the GBC body will approve certain persons to take up the responsibility of becoming spiritual masters. The understanding is that there's always, one never forgets that Prabhupada is the founder acharya of ISKCON, and everyone has to be surrendered to him. And Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or greater than him. And Prabhupada, by his mercy, has given us all this knowledge of Krishna. Therefore, he is the ultimate acharya, the ultimate authority. His books are the basis of everything in Krishna consciousness. And no one is going to be equal to or better than him, in the sense that he will always remain the founder acharya of ISKCON. So That is the reality of ISKCON, and that's why it's continuing. It didn't fracture because each member of the GBC has an oath of allegiance to uphold Prabhupada's teachings and not change them, and not, let's say, act independently. So you have many gurus in ISKCON. There's close to 100 or more, but they are not supreme authorities. They are subject to the authority of the GBC. Whereas in the Gaudiya Math, each guru became a supreme authority in his mat, or his temple, or his temples, and so there's a major difference now between the Gaudiya Math and ISKCON. Now, what did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur want? He wanted what Prabhupada did, and Prabhupada did it, whereas his godbrothers were not able to do it for basically vested interests. So this collegial management of the movement is something unique, because but it existed also in the time of Lord Chaitanya, because after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya, the devotees cooperated with each other, and the most advanced devotees, like the 6 Goswamis, were the leaders of Krishna consciousness, and everyone basically listened to them, right? And they were pure devotees, and their level of purity was unmatched by anyone else. In other words, they didn't live in opulence at all. They all lived very, very simply. They didn't sleep much. They didn't eat much. They didn't have jobs or anything like that. They were just fully dedicated to hearing and chanting. And they lived with poor people. They lived with the villagers. But yet they were able to build big temples, because they were all highly, let's say, educated and sophisticated persons. They knew how to deal with the Muslims, even though the Muslims were in complete control of that part of India, where Vrindavan is located. And but they were all humble. Everybody liked them because they could see that they were genuine sadhus and they were pure devotees. So this collegial organization of ISKCON is something unique, and it was the desire of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Prabhupada did it. And therefore, when someone is given the permission to initiate, that doesn't mean that they are God or they are some kind of Superman, because what does it mean to initiate? To be initiating guru, a Diksha guru. There are many Shiksha gurus in ISKCON, many, many. But there are few, let's say a relatively small number of Diksha gurus. The Diksha guru has a very grave responsibility. When someone is initiated, the Diksha guru accepts their sinful reactions and has to purify them. And if the person is not a bona fide guru, then they'll be crushed by the weight of all those sinful acts that their disciples may perform, and they might not be able to convince their disciples to give up sinful activity. So it's a very grave responsibility. Now, of course, the Ritvik philosophy is all about, only Prabhupada is the guru, so we'll dump all the sins of the disciples on Prabhupada. But that's not the system. It's never been practiced like that. Except in Christianity, where they dump all their sins on Jesus. The Diksha Guru has a grave responsibility. That they're responsible for the people that they initiate, and if their disciples if their disciples break the principles, the guru suffers because of that. So that is their service for Prabhupada. We're not going to dump all the sins of disciples in the future on Prabhupada, that would be very, let's say, cruel. That's the system in Christianity, but that's not the Vaishnava system. That's never been practiced like that. Okay, so then if someone is approved as a guru in ISKCON after long scrutiny, does that mean that they're infallible? No. They're always subject to the authority of the GBC. They're not independently, let's say, they're not independent. They're always dependent on the managing authority of the GBC. Can the managing authority of the GBC interfere between the relationship of the guru and his disciples? No, unless the guru deviates, then they can. Who do the disciples belong to? They belong to ISKCON and Prabhupada. So as soon as a guru has this possessive attitude toward the disciples, this is my disciple, the assets that they have belong to me, like that, a downward spiral begins because of that possessiveness, because of the I, me, and mine syndrome. So as long as all these different understandings are clear in the minds of the gurus, they're protected by by Krishna and Prabhupada and the Parampara. If they develop this possessive attitude, then this downward spiral begins, and eventually they can fall down. Okay, but that's true also for anybody, for any whether he's a guru or whether he's a disciple. As soon as we think aham mameti, the I, me, and my mine syndrome, we begin to fall down, and eventually we will fall down. Okay, so that's a big subject, what I just talked about. That is, that one who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become a spiritual master. See, Sukadev Goswami is an authorized spiritual master, and thus he was inspired by the Lord to appear before Maharaj Parikshit and instruct him in the teachings of Srimad Bhagvatam. One can achieve the ultimate success of going back to Godhead if he's favored by the Lord's sending his true representative. As soon as a true representative of the Lord is met by a devotee of the Lord, the devotee is assured a guarantee for going back to Godhead just after leaving the present body. This, however, depends on the sincerity of the devotee himself. Okay, so not only the guru has a grave responsibility, the devotee also has a grave responsibility, or the disciple also has a grave responsibility. Whether they're going to go back to Godhead depends on their sincerity. Sincerity, what does that mean? That means that they're willing to accept the instructions of Shiksha and Diksha gurus, and who are bona fide because they're strictly themselves surrendered to the managing body, supreme managing body of ISKCON, the GBC, who they themselves, the members of the GBC, individually and collectively, are responsible to Srila Prabhupada to safeguard his legacy and to safeguard the purity of his instructions, and which are coming originally from Krishna through the disciplic succession. So everybody has different layers of grave responsibility to be sincerely following the vows of initiation, whether they're GBC man or whether they're a new newly initiated devotee, or whether they're just a new person trying to become a devotee. We all have the same responsibility, waking up early, chanting our rounds, coming to Mangal Arati, hearing the classes, and respecting, doing Tulsi Puja, and seeing the deities, bowing down, and accepting only prasadam and following the regulative principles, etc. We all have that responsibility. It doesn't matter if one's a devotee 100 years or one's a devotee for one day. We have to follow strictly the regulative principles. Okay, so then Prabhupada says, the conclusion is that to get assistance and help of a bona fide spiritual master means to receive the direct help of the Lord himself. So if there's sincere, let's say, spiritual master, there's sincere disciple, and both of them are following the same rules and regulations strictly, that means that's parampara. This mercy of Krishna comes down through the parampara to the disciple, and service that the disciple renders sincerely goes up to Krishna and is offered to Krishna through the disciplic succession. So to get the assistance and help of a bona fide spiritual master means to receive the direct help of the Lord himself. Now, one cannot be a partial guru or a partial spiritual master. One has to be completely involved. And that is a big subject. What does that mean, completely involved? This is explained yesterday where we were discussing this class that Prabhupada gave. And we stopped at a certain point, and I want to continue to the end because it explains what this complete involvement means. So, Prabhupada we talked yesterday about avan manasa gochara, which means that you cannot think of, you cannot speak of, or even conceptualize the inconceivable potency of the Lord. But if Krishna himself comes before us and says, "Here I am," then this inconceivability can be generally understood by the devotee. You can never completely understand it, but the general understanding is there. That's if God comes himself and says, "Here I am." And then Prabhupada says, then where is the difficulty? You can understand even though it's inconceivable. Well, Krishna has come and said, here I am. It's called Bhagavad Gita, especially Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada, not Bhagavad Gita as I want it to be, like all the other translations. So when we hear Bhagavad Gita correctly, then we'll come to the same conclusion as Arjuna, who's the quintessential disciple of Krishna. And that is, Arjuna says, I'm not going to do what I think I should do. I'm going to do what you tell me to do, Krishna. Because you are the supreme authority. You are the supreme absolute truth. You have all the opulences. You know everything, past, present, and future. Therefore, your advice to me is what is most important in my life. So, and what is Krishna's advice? Well, he gives that in the Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter, and he says that Ya imam paramam guyam mad bhaktisra abhidasyati bhakti maya param kritva mam evaisasya samsaya nachatasman manusyesu kaschit me priyakritamam bhavita na chame tasmad anya priyataro bhuvi. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. And what is that? For one who explains this supreme secret, Bhagavad Gita, to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end, he will come back to me. So what did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ask Prabhupada to do in the first 30 seconds of their meeting? He said, you are educated. You should spread this Krishna consciousness to the English-speaking world. Well, the English-speaking world covers almost the whole world. So he was saying you should become a world preacher, Paramahansa. So, therefore, this taking knowledge from Krishna, the Supreme Person, the perfect person, is what we do in ISKCON. And Krishna is advising that if you want to stop your pains and pleasures, and you want to stop the whole samsara of birth and death, then you must make some arrangement not to accept another material body. So he's advising how to avoid getting another material body in your next life. In the second chapter, and this is the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and eventually in the fourth chapter, Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata tyakva deham punarjanman naiti mam eti sarjana. Anyone who takes the trouble to understand the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities does not take birth again after leaving the body, but goes back to Godhead. So Krishna is speaking about himself in the Bhagavad Gita, and if you try to understand what Krishna is saying, this is our Krishna consciousness movement. We're all trying to understand what Krishna told Arjuna 5,000 years ago. And Krishna is not impersonal. He's a person. He's the supreme person. And he has activities. He's not meditating in a cave, or he's not merging into some impersonal Brahmajyoti, although the Brahmajyoti is emanating from him. So Krishna has personal and impersonal qualities. But the origin of the impersonal qualities is coming from a person named Krishna. So, and why does Krishna come? He comes to deliver the devotees, annihilate the demons, and reestablish the principles of religion. So, Prabhupada says this Krishna consciousness movement is a very serious movement. It's for the welfare of all human society. And this Bhagavad Gita is hearing directly Krishna's instructions on how to organize our lives in order to go back to Godhead. And if we simply hear reverently and regularly, then everything will be revealed. And everything will be revealed automatically. Okay, what does that mean, automatically? Sevan mukhehi jivado swayam eva spuratyada. Atakshi krishnanamadi nabhaved graham indriyai. Sevan mukhehi jivado swayam eva spuratyada. What does this mean? It's very interesting. It means that you can understand with your tongue. Well, that's shocking. So mostly people say, oh, wait a minute, no, I don't understand with my tongue. I understand with my brain, my mind, my intelligence. But because Krishna has inconceivable energies, achintikalo ye bhavet, bhava natam starkena yojayat. He has these inconceivable potencies. Therefore, with your intelligence, with your mind, you can't really understand. We can't conceive of what it means that Krishna expands into Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu, when he exhales, millions and billions of entire universes emanate from his body. And each universe has millions and billions of people and living entities and lasts for trillions of years. How can you imagine that? How can you adjust your mind to understand that there's someone so powerful? Say, it's impossible. It's inconceivable. When Arjuna saw the universal form, he got bewildered, and he begged Krishna, I don't want to see this anymore. Go back to your four-arm form, and ultimately I want to see your two-arm form. That's something I can deal with. I can't deal with this universal form. Seeing past, present, and future all at one time, and seeing everything, the billions of planets and living entities, it's too much, right? And that's only one universe. There are billions of universes, I say. So therefore it says, when something is inconceivable, one should not try to understand by foolish argument and logic. Don't try to understand like that, because it's achintya. It's beyond conception. Chintya means with your perception, and achintya means beyond your perception. Achintya kala ye bhavet, natam starkeno yojayat. We accept knowledge from a perfect person. We cannot use our intelligence, our logic, our reason to understand something that's inconceivable. But the knowledge received from the perfect person is perfect. So this is our process. We don't try to speculate. That may or may not be successful. But if you accept knowledge from the perfect authority, that knowledge is perfect. So therefore, it's important that we understand with the tongue rather than with the intelligence. Now what does that mean? Well, first of all, atak shikrisanaba, the nabhavet graham indriya. Our senses are blunt, and therefore we cannot understand Krishna with our senses. We cannot understand his name, his form, his qualities, his activities. That you cannot understand. How can I understand Krishna? That is sevan mukhe ijivada. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 17:136. When you engage your tongue in the service of the Lord. Now this is another peculiar thing, Prabhupada says, that to understand by the tongue and not by the mind. Tongue means we have got two businesses we perform with the tongue. One is tasting foodstuff, and two is vibrating sound. So if we use the tongue to vibrate Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and eat Mahaprasadam, bas. What does bas mean in Hindi? That's it, right? Yes, bas. So it's all over then. So therefore he says, then you understand Krishna. You don't understand, but he reveals, because you're always taking prasadam, you're always chanting, and you're listening to the advice of bona fide gurus. So Prabhupada says, then Krishna will reveal it to you. So that's also explained in Bhagavad Gita, yetamam prapadyante. He says that in the 10th chapter, 10th verse, that he will reveal knowledge to the devotee who's always engaged in devotional service. So Prabhupada says that actually this is happening all over the world right now. These young boys and girls, because they're chanting Hare Krishna mantra, and because they're eating Krishna prasadam, now they are developing their Krishna consciousness. They are not Vedantas. They have not studied all the Vedas. But how they are understanding, if they are not understanding Krishna, how they are sticking to this life. In this life, everything is forbidden. No illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. Everything no. Material life finished. Why? They are sticking to this unless they are understanding Krishna. This is the proof. The more you stick to this principle, sevan mukhehi jivado, understanding with the tongue, engage your tongue in two businesses, chanting Hare Krishna and eating Krishna prasadam, your life will be perfect. So, now, do you have to be a Vedantis? No. Do you have to be a yogi? No. You have to be doing rituals all day long? No. Simply chant, dance, and take prasadam, and follow instructions of bona fide guru and gurus. Your life is perfect. You go back to Godhead in this lifetime. Does that sound difficult? No, it's not difficult. It's only difficult if we have a myriad number of material desires. Then it becomes very difficult. So, some devotee asked a question to Prabhupada. And the question is, of all the senses, I am the mind, he said. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita. And so Prabhupada said, what is your question? And he said, well, you explained that there are three kinds of miseries. And adhyatmika, adhibodhika, adhidaivika. So adhyatmika is miseries of the body and the mind. And Prabhupada said, yes. The devotee said, how can I understand this? Well, Prabhupada said, he answered him now, he said, because the mind is not in order. That is, that adhyatmika, suppose somebody comes to me and asks some question. I am not thinking very well. Later on I shall say, that means mind is not in order. You're hearing Bhagavad Gita right now, but your mind is somewhere else. So this is mind's disease, rejecting and accepting. There is mind's disease. There is bodily disease. That is called adhyatmika. So, in other words, his answer is the fact that you can't focus your mind on Krishna consciousness is adhyatmika. And because you're not using your body all the time in Krishna consciousness, your body, your senses, your intelligence, that's called adhyatmika. And because of that, you're suffering. You're suffering frustration, you're suffering confusion, you're suffering happiness and distress and different dualities, all of that because you can't focus your mind on Krishna. So therefore, the simple way that Lord Chaitanya gave to focus the mind on Krishna is chant Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Always chant Hare Krishna. Every moment where you, just like sometimes kids say, oh, I'm bored. Ah, you're bored? Then chant Hare Krishna. Oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, you don't know what to do? Chant Hare Krishna. When in doubt, chant Hare Krishna. Always chant Hare Krishna. Then your mind is focused on Krishna. Then your mind will not deviate from Krishna. If you feel your mind is deviating from Krishna, what do? Chant Hare Krishna, right? So, this is the mind's disease. It accepts and it rejects very easily. Just like you meet someone and right away you get the impression, I don't think I'm going to like this person. How do you know? You just met the person. But you have this accepting and rejecting. All of us, the mind accepts and rejects. The intelligence is more, let's say, careful in accepting and rejecting. It has to have valid reasons to reject and valid reasons to accept. But the mind is very quick to accept and reject. It's based on emotions, not based on any knowledge. So our intelligence, it should be intelligence through Shastra. We should make decisions in our life through Shastra. What is accepted, what is not accepted in Shastra. Not on feelings. So many people accepted Hitler. They thought he was the greatest thing that ever happened for humanity because it was all emotional. It was not based on facts or not based on Shastric evidence. So when Hitler said, we are the Aryan race, and an Aryan race he defined in terms of physical characteristics. That's not the meaning of the word Aryan. They borrowed that word from Sanskrit. Aryan is a civilization that's dedicated to serving God and helping its citizens go back to Godhead. It's not blonde hair, blue eyes, tall, and Caucasians. But that was Hitler's idea, even though he was not blonde, blue eyes, and tall. Right? He was not even German. He was an Austrian, right? But this is what he defined as the superior race. So they take this word from Sanskrit and completely misrepresent it and come up with some phony philosophy that leads to disaster. At first there was success, and then there was complete disaster. So that's what happens when we follow false so-called gurus. So then there was a second question after the class by an Indian man, and he said, in your lecture, you said, learn to tolerate, learn to endure, tolerate. And Prabhupada said, tolerance. The Indian man said, yes. And how can one be better equipped to tolerate these despairs and miseries of our human existence? Okay, now that's a good question. Right? And Prabhupada said, the more he understands he is not the body. That was his answer, right? So the man said, yes. And Prabhupada said, the more he understands I am not this body, then he can tolerate. And if we become disturbed by the pains and pleasures of the body, then we shall forget our real business. Our real business is to get out of this body. I am not this body, but this human body is a chance how to get out of this body. That is my real business. In other words, when you have a human body, you also have human intelligence, human mind, and human senses. All these things are very highly sophisticated instruments, and they should only be used to how to not have another material body. That's Prabhupada's point. This is the way you should use your life and your body. So our real business is to get out. I am not this body, but this human body is a chance how to get out of this body. That is my real business. So if we are disturbed by these bodily pains and pleasures very much, then I forget my real business. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has advised, Taror api sahisnuna. Okay, what does that mean? It means that one should be more humble than the grass and more tolerant than the tree, right? Trinad api sunichena means more humble than the grass. And Taror api sahisnuna, more tolerant than a tree. That's because you know I'm not this body, therefore you tolerate. And you know that I'm not God, I'm the servant of God. So then you become humble like the grass. Chinadapi sunichina, like the grass. Everyone is trampling over the grass does not protest. Therefore humbler than the grass and tolerant than a tree. In this way, we shall have to keep our position in this material world and advance in spiritual consciousness. If we become disturbed, then we cannot make progress. Suppose we are prohibiting so many things, especially in the Western world. It is very painful, but we have to tolerate. If you want to get out of this body, you have to tolerate. Actually, it is not painful. If you are in Krishna consciousness, then it is not difficult. It is very easy. So then a devotee, another person, said, Srila Prabhupada, I just want to develop this desire to get out of this body. So they picked up on what Prabhupada said, right? What do people do normally? They want to stay in the body as long as possible. You see, everything is upside down in material life. They want to use Botox. They want to get rid of their gonads and replace it with monkey gonads, so they can have more sex. And they want to, take organic food and supplements and this thing and that thing to prolong their life in the body, right? They want to freeze the body, right, before death so they can be unfrozen 100 years later when they figured out how to conquer death, which is, the whole thing is nonsense, right? But they do all these crazy things because they want to stay in the body as long as possible. And if they can't stay in this particular body, they want to get a robot body and download their mind into the robots, into the software of the robot. Say. So it's all nonsense. It's all bodily related, right? Just like you can get a clone. You can get cloned genetically. So you have the same type of body. Anyway, it's all I want to stay in the body. And but Prabhupada says the goal of the devotee is to get out of the body, no longer have a material body, and have their original spiritual body. So Prabhupada says, no material desire. Simply think, therefore. So the devotee said, I want to develop this desire to get out of this body. So Prabhupada said, simply think of how to push on this movement. That desire and no other desire. Anya bilasita sunyam. No movement of the mind towards sense gratification. That desire is no other desire than simply desire to push on this movement. Sunyam means zero. All material desires should be zero. Simply desire, how shall I push on? How shall I serve Krishna? How shall I decorate the deity? Therefore, we have given so many engagements to divert the desire. Desire cannot be stopped. That is not possible. Those foolish persons who try to become desireless, that is not possible. Desireless means I am dead. No, purified desire. Purified desire. You have to get the desire. You have got the desire for driving a car. Just drive the car for preaching Krishna consciousness then, right? You want a car. Okay, fine. But use the car only to preach Krishna consciousness. And then all the devotees screamed out in laughter and joy, Jai, Haribol, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said, you see, change the quality of the desire. Desire cannot be stopped. That is not possible. I want to eat very nice foodstuff. All right. Eat remnants of foodstuff. We offer Krishna the best food. That is the regulative principle. Krishna should be offered the best foodstuff. And you take the remnants. Krishna is not so hungry that he needs your food. He is taking, but he is leaving also. That is Krishna's eating. Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yomi bhakta prayachati tadaham bhakti asnami prayatat naha. Anyone who is offering me this food stuff made of patram pushpam, vegetables and food grains and milk, he never says, give me meat or eggs. No, he never says, he says, patram pushpam phalam toyam. These foodstuff we can prepare nicely in so many ways. And Krishna says, if somebody offers me with faith and love, I eat it. Now the question is, you see, that whatever I offer, these things are there. How Krishna has eaten. Therefore, his eating process is different. But he has eaten. That you have to learn from Shastra. That purnasya purnam adaya purnam eva vasishyate. He's not hungry. Still, he can eat the whole world. But still, the world remains as it is. That will require some brain to understand. Krishna eats, and again keeps the whole thing as it is for your eating. So you are not loser. If you offer to Krishna, Krishna will eat, and he will again get you the foodstuff for eating. That is his fullness. That is his fullness. So therefore, you prepare very, very nice foodstuff and offer to Krishna and take it. Then your desire for eating nice foodstuff will be automatically fulfilled, and at the same time, you become devotee of Krishna. Why don't you do this? Anyone can do it, either in this temple or at home. But they will not worship Krishna. They will worship a dog. Instead of God, they keep a dog and take all care of the dog. This is the mentality. The next life, he becomes a dog because he has got good faith and love for dog. Therefore, he becomes dog. And if you have got good faith and love for Krishna, you become a body like Krishna. Unless you have got the same type of body, how can you play with Krishna, dance with Krishna? Therefore, Krishna says, Tyakva deham punarajanma naiti mam eti swarjanam. So if you become perfect devotee of Krishna, then after giving up this body, you will get a body like Krishna, Satchitananda Vigraha, and live eternally blissful life of knowledge. That should be the aim of life. All right, chant Hare Krishna. And then the devotees said, Haribol, Hare Krishna. So this is a fantastic class by Prabhupada. And he makes this point that if something is inconceivable, don't try and understand it with speculation or with your mind or so-called intelligence. Use your tongue to understand. See? This is revolutionary. You don't need the mind and the intelligence. You need the tongue, because the tongue does two things. It vibrates and it tastes. So you just take prasadam with reverence and respect and humility and tolerance, and you chant Hare Krishna. And all the problems go away. You can tolerate any situation, and Krishna will give you the intelligence by which you come back to me, right? To him. Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayanti te. I give the intelligence by which my devotees come back to me. So therefore, one last point, in the 8th chapter, 14th verse, this is explained. It says, Ananya cheta satatam yomam charati smarati nityasaha tasyam srulukpa partha nityayuktasya yogina. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Prita, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. So this is a wonderful purport. I'm not going to read it now. This will be for tomorrow. You can read it and think about this purport, 8th chapter, 14th verse. And I have a lot to say about it. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions? We're going to finish this first canto tomorrow. Haribol.